and let us all do we can to build a better future. I want to introduce this video as absolute pride because we need to call out AOC. That's right. We're talking about AOC because Nick from Revolutionary Blackout Network and Glenn Greenwald talk about the profound betrayal of AOC and her false promises. So let's pull up this video. Again, I encourage everyone to please check out the full video on System Update hosted by Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald has done phenomenal work, award-winning journalist, and shout out to Nick for being on this network. Again, huge shout out to independent media. Now more than ever, independent media is leading the way where corporate media is crapping itself.
Seen it. The fact that not only did AOC decide to endorse the sitting incumbent president for re-election, Joe Biden, even though there are two primary challengers that he has, Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr., as well as a third-party candidate who's running, Cornel West, who supposedly espouses ideas that AOC at least once pretended to believe in, much more so than she pretended to believe in the ideology of Joe Biden. She not only endorsed Joe Biden without even waiting to see who would be running against him. It's still possible there could be other primary challengers that he has. She didn't even pretend to extract any promises from him. Remember when the right wing of the Republican Party, when Kevin McCarthy needed their support to become House Speaker, they very openly refused to give that until they extracted all kinds of promises about how power would be wielded in the House in a much more diffuse way. She didn't even pretend to do that. And then to add insult to injury, the place she chose to unveil her endorsement is the podcast Pod Save America.
Oh, yes. The Pod Save America that says, if you vote third party, you're helping Trump. That's it. Hold on. Wait, I'm not even doing the face right. Here, this is how the guys at Pod Save America looked. All right. Hold on. Gotta look a little bit more. If you're going to support third parties, you're helping Trump. That's it. If you don't believe me, he made that face. Like,
Obama administration national security officials who are complete and steadfast loyalists to the Democratic Party. You wind them up and they heap praise on not just the Democratic Party, but it's on all of its leaders. It's basically a place where the Chuck Schumers and Nancy Pelosi's of the world go to talk to their loyal flock. So let's look at her doing this, and I'm going to I don't even have to ask you a question, Nick. You're going to be all ready just to spout all sorts of things once you hear this. So I'm going to subject you to this one more time, and I apologize in advance. But for anyone in our audience who did not see it, here is AOC formally endorsing the current Democratic incumbent president, Joe Biden.
The president's only primary opponents are Marianne Williamson, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Haven't been any rumors about anyone else even thinking about jumping in. Will you be supporting Joe Biden for re-election?
I believe given that field, yes. I think he's done quite well, given the limitations that we have.
He's done quite well, Nick, given the limitations that he has. So let me just go on. I just needed to stop that there and note that.
I do think that there are ebbs and flows, as there are in any presidency. You know, there are areas that I think were quite strong when he came right out of the gate with the American Rescue Plan. And of course, the Inflation Reduction Act was a massive step in terms of our climate agenda. But, you know, there are also areas that I think could have gone better. We have major structural.
Did you hear how she phrases her criticisms? There are things that could have gone better, meaning I will admit he's not perfect. All right, let's just finish this.
Issues in this country. And I think it starts with the United States Senate. And I think that until we have senators that are willing to stand up and stare the filibuster in the eye and stare a lot of structural issues about the Senate, and the United States Senate will be what holds back this country from an enormous amount of progress.
So she was willing to admit reluctantly that Joe Biden is not.
Now, I didn't want to pause it because, again, I want us to, power through listening to AOC. But look, because I know Glenn Greenwald and Nick are going to articulate perfectly about why AOC's betrayal to the progressives is so profound and horrifying. Because, again, AOC ran this promise of raising the ruckus, which she never did. Now, again, she is with the Democratic establishment. and everybody's in a rush to support Biden. But what I find crazy is that even though there's still this primary happening, I mean, RFK Jr. is a legitimate candidate. He's got 20% already in approval rating. He's going on many town halls and shows. Yet they're dismissing him. Again, Democrats, way to show your wazoo to the people. Or Democratic establishment, way to show your wazoo to the people.
Not in fact perfect. There are things that could have gone better, but she very quickly added that it's not his fault in any way. It's the fault of the Senate, particularly Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, and it's the Senate that needs to be fixed for Joe Biden to be perfect, but he's certainly extremely good and therefore merits her endorsement. What is your reaction to that, Nick?
That shows how AOC's job is just to do PR for the Democratic Party, because she's head faking to the legislative branch as if the left biggest criticism of Joe Biden is what he have not done. Our biggest criticism is the fact that he's about to start World War III because of AOC. And AOC used to stand for abolishing ICE. Now you have Joe Biden who's funding ICE $6 billion more than Donald Trump, deported more people than Donald Trump. Now this is not an issue she cares about. She pretended to be a climate activist for clout for years, and now she endorsed a president who is spanning out the Willow Project, who is a fracker, who actually did more public drilling than Donald Trump. But she's not a climate activist when a Democrat is in charge. She's a climate activist only when a Republican is in charge. And I think this shows how weak Joe Biden is right now. Because in the last election, they had to make a progressive task force to head fake and pretend that they're going to get progressive policies. There's none of that now. And there's zero excuse for anyone to endorse someone with a horrific record like Joe Biden a year and a half before the election. Their job is to lead workers off a cliff and undercut our negotiation power.
More on top, too. Look, again, AOC. Let's look at her voting record, too. Again, Nick is doing a fantastic job. There's not really much I could say, but I want to highlight this because, again, sometimes a lot of these great videos and commentary fly under a lot of people's radar because we're so busy with social media. But let's be clear here. AOC's voting record, it's pretty pathetic. It's very conservative, very neoliberal. And how can we all forget the time when AOC cried when old hagbag Nancy was wagging her finger in her face, turning her no vote into a present for funding for the Iron Dome? Turncoat Don, shut the F up, shite lib. Not going to tell you what to do, but maybe when you get a time, pour a cup of tea, cup of coffee, whatever you need to do, and make a compilation of AOC's hypocrisy. It'll be worthwhile. Yeah, you got to treasure trove. Take your time. But you got a lot to work with.
Now is the time where we had the most negotiation, and AOC, seeing how weak Biden is in the polls, often also because RFK and Dr. Cornel West, who is already polling at 6%. So they can't even play around. They was given the order to endorse immediately, which shows how weak Joe Biden is that she had to do this.
Do you remember the time in 2018 when she picked out a really striking outfit, all white? It was very dramatic, and she put it on, and then she went down to the border and she posed in front of a camera that was wielded by her staffer in front of that fence overlooking the parking lot. But it was eventually, if you traversed that parking lot, you arrived at the place where migrants were held, and she posed in these very pained and anguished ways because she was so deeply moved as a human being about the cruelty at the border. Nothing has changed at the border. Absolutely nothing has changed about the border. And she has not even gone down there.
She made that sad face like, hold on. She made that sad face like this. That was it. I think it was all out. Something like that. I don't know. She I was like, I'm so sad.
Or even barely mentioned the border. And the thing I genuinely don't understand is how people don't end up being offended by this. The fact that they just so blatantly trifle with people's emotions in ways that prove so completely inauthentic.
And that's the argument that we make at Revolutionary Blackout. Who's really worse, Glenn? Joe Manchin, we know he's an asshole. He stands on yachts and shout down protesters. I don't know if you've seen that famous video where he was on a yacht shouting down protesters. Openly takes millions of dollars from big.
Here, hold on. This is the face. There. Hey, AOC, you missed your calling as an actress. You missed your calling, but hey, you got the biggest role of your life, pretending to be a rabble rouser.
Oil and all these corporations. So his mindset is if you vote for him as a leftist or as a worker, it's kind of your fault because he's not hiding who he is. I will make the argument that it takes a special kind of evil and maliciousness to do what AOC and Bernie Sanders has done. And the professional managerial class, for the most part, has protected them from the reckoning that is going to come. This reckoning, and you see the increased anger about AOC and Bernie. Even Jacobin now has the balls to criticize AOC and Bernie Sanders now, just because there's overwhelmingly dislike over her. And her politics has failed. It's just a fact. If you look at how she is as unpopular as Kamala Harris, even though she quote unquote support popular policies, that because her politics and her willingness to be just a PR agent of a Democratic Party while stealing working class people's money has grossly offended the real left. And she knows this. That's why she had to go on Pod Save America. She can't even go on social Democrat-like channels. She has to go full establishment because she lost any support from the left. Even people that are to the right of me had enough of AOC and her fake gaslighting nonsense. And my friend, Comrade Missy, predicted that she's going to be the next Nancy Pelosi, and that's exactly what's going on. When you look at
yes, Nancy has her successor, and let's face it, AOC is a click copy version of Nancy. The same grape to make the same vintage of wine. Mediocre, lackluster, and neoliberal as always.
Pro-war votes, when you see how she's whipping support for the Democratic Party, that is exactly what her role is right now. She completely abandoned the left, and anyone on the left who's propping her up, they're just being willful idiots, and she's not even trying to appeal to them anymore.
Precisely and exactly. He's on point. So I wanted to give a shout out to Nick and Glenn Greenwald for giving a thorough analysis in regards to AOC and her utter hypocrisy. So with that being said, folks, keep your heads on a swivel and stay tuned, because this election cycle is only going to intensify. And I encourage all of you to follow all independent media, because now more than ever, we have to break away from the two-party system.